Tableau! It's Loathsome Things, a horror movie podcast with your host Josh and his host John. John, what is the feeling that you're having right now?
Neath!
Good!
Oh my god.
It's good. It's good.
Very, very jolly and giggly considering what we're about to discuss.
Oh man, we could just not discuss it.
The whole time I was watching this movie, I was thinking, Josh is gotta be dying, and what he has coming up ahead is gonna just bury him.
Yeah, this is. I don't know. This movie was a surprise.
Very intense.
Yeah, it's all right, so you say his name way better than I do. I say it like a stupid Texas guy, and when you say it, you put a little like European mwah in it. So what's the director's name and what's the name of the movie?
Ingmar Bergman. And the movie is and the movie's called The Virgin Spring from 1960.
Or also known as Jungfrukalen.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
For you Swedes.
Which is way better than the Virgin
Yeah,
Spring.
the Virgin Spring is good. Which, you know, to be fair, the Virgin Spring is the perfect title for this film.
It really is. Yeah.
It all hit me at once. I was like, Virgin Spring.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of this movie has to do with streams of water, and it's let's see. So it's based on a 13th century Swedish ballad called Torsdotrar I Hwang.
That's right. Tara's daughter is something. I forget.
A wang.
That's right. Has been wanged.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Why is that funny? I don't know what.
I don't know. It's really not.
She was raped. It's like, Jesus Christ.
So the original ballad is this movie. Like, I went and I read the ballad, the translation of it, and it's literally just this movie, but there's 3 daughters instead of 1 daughter. And then it turns out that the 3 goat herders are also the sons of the couple of the house that their daughters died.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So whenever I went back and rewatched this movie, I looked for clues for that, and I don't think it's in there. Or I misunderstood the ballad, but it seems pretty central to it.
Right.
But yeah. And that ballad is specifically... It's this story, but more specifically, it is the ballad of why that church was built right there.
I'm gonna get to that when we get to that point in the story, because, wow.
Yeah. I love his films. Like, every time I've seen one of his films, I've been blown away. And then, like, just starting this movie, I was like, oh, wow, there it is. There's his cinematography, the way that he frames everything. It's it's right there. But, the symbolism is heavy, over the top, and at times a little confusing.
That's true. Yeah, definitely. Is it? I forgot to look it up. Is it the cinematographer that he's notorious for working with, Nyquist, I think his name was?
Yeah, it's his, like, go-to cinematographer, and also this is, like, his stable of all of his regular actors.
Yeah, this was before, but yeah, this was kind of like the earlier crew except for von Sydow, who, you know, was pretty much through Bergman's career, and then of course went on to do a shit ton of Hollywood stuff.
Yeah, I wrote down some, like, he was in What Dreams May Come, Minority Report, Rush Hour 3, Star Wars 7, The Force Awakens, and, to modern viewers, most notably, he was the Three-Eyed Raven in Game of Thrones.
That's right. He was also in The Black Hole. Remember The Black Hole? Wasn't he in that?
The Disney space one?
Wait, was he in that? No, I think maybe whatever. He's awesome. He
totally kicks ass.
Yeah, he's the guy playing chess with death in The Seventh Seal.
I fucking love The Seventh Seal. That movie is literally how I discovered the Criterion Collection, because I was looking for that movie, and then it was like, oh, it's only available as a Criterion Collection DVD, and I was like, oh, what? And then later I came to work at Barnes & Noble, and they were like, oh yeah, we have a whole section.
Yeah.
Yeah. Other Bergman movies of note are like Through a Glass Darkly, Hour of the Wolf, and Persona. All fantastic. All with like this same cast of actors, basically.
Wild Strawberries.
Yeah, Wild Strawberries. I think this was like right after Wild Strawberries.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, and this is kind of like what kicked off his like darker, more horrific movies, but I would also say maybe this movie's really not a horror movie, which is fine. I don't think he like tried to sell it as a horror movie.
Right.
So it's weird that we're reviewing it.
Well, I mean, it's described all over the internet as a horror film, and it's got horrible shit, but it's an allegory, you know? It's not really a horror film. But, you know.
Yeah.
It certainly spawned a few.
Yes, yeah. I mean, for our purposes, it holds a place in horror cinema history, whether or not he wanted it to be there.
It had a profound impact on Wes Craven, and you know, that movie was then remade, The Last House on the Left, and arguably remade again in France with Irreversible, but backwards.
Jesus. God.
And possibly right up there with the most intense films I've ever seen.
Whew. Yeah, so we're in for it, you guys. This movie, this is probably it's definitely the first and almost certainly the only time this is ever gonna happen. We're reviewing a Academy Award winning film. This won the 1961 Best Foreign Language Film at the Academy Awards, and it got the 1960 Palme d'Or at Cannes.
Cannes. Famous Cannes. Yeah, it's well deserved. It's a wonderful film. It's a very difficult film. There's many layers to it. It can be seen in so many different ways. But as far as the experience of watching it, it's pretty daunting. I imagine in 1960 it must have been pretty intense. Intense now.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't even like look at that. Like, I'm sure there's some really good rape in cinema essays out there. I'm not sure like where this places amongst them, but it's wild. Like that this came out in 1961 or 1960.
And it's crazy that, you know, I mean, the movie just looks so dated. Because, well, for one thing, it's a period piece, but it doesn't look like 1960. It looks like it was made in the 30s or 40s until the story changes direction, and there's no way it could have been made any earlier than 1960. I'm amazed. I guess because in Sweden they're just more, you know, they let that kind of stuff slide more, because if that came out in the U.S., that wouldn't have come out in the U.S. in the 60s. No, not in 1960, no. Later 60s, yes.
Yeah, I think Sweden had a conservatization that came up later, or I could be mixing it up with, you know, like Finland or any other of those countries. I don't know. But I mean, yeah, at this point it was... it's wild. And yeah, it got censored in America. It got all kinds of stuff, which is awesome. Like it has a fantastic legacy, and like the one we're gonna do next, The Last House on the Left, also got censored. So it's just like it definitely is the first domino of some really intense things, like an entire subgenre of horror films that was spawned from it in the United States.
Yeah, and around the world. I mean, there's some very, very famous Korean revenge films. I don't know that they're rape revenge films, but they're revenge films, and I guess that doesn't really count. But the like Irreversible is a very similar, you know, in ways very similar. And as you know, you were kind of making me think that like movies like this one, and then, you know, and consequently like The Last House on the Left franchise, I guess you could say, which is weird. led to, was, instrumental in a whole section of like transgressive films that push the limit. But it didn't, this movie pushes the limit, but I don't think it was necessarily meant to be transgressive. I think it was, it was just a ballsy, very expressive, symbolic film. It's more art than it is, entertainment. Whereas like Last House on the Left is notorious for being extreme for its time, but it's also going to be very campy and very Wes Craven-y. And then the third one is just a sheer, it's like the ugly stepchild of transgressive film. Like it's not great, but it's not terrible, but it's definitely excessive. It's very extreme. Yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Oh, what have we done?
I know. So this is our way of celebrating the spring, the virgin spring.
Nice. I didn't even think about it like that. That's pleasant.
Yeah. I mean, it is a horror movie show, so I guess it's okay.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, if we're gonna do a spring theme, might as well really make it suck.
Let's dig in and talk about it in great detail.
Yeah. Do you want to kick us off, John?
Yes, I will kick us off. Our movie opens with a servant working in a farm in kind of the cooking area, in the kitchen / dining area. I don't know. There's hay everywhere. She is pregnant and she is filthy, dirty. She's wearing dark clothing, dark hair, very dark character. She's got a pretty foul look on her face. She's cooking. It's a very medieval setting. We hear the cock crow outside, and then she starts humping a support pole in the room and begging for Odin, calling for Odin to punish somebody. We cut to a lady who I thought was a nun, but is actually just the mother of the character Karin, whatever, and her husband is Thor. And so anyways, she's praying, her husband's there, then she pours hot wax on her wrist, which was strange. Then we see an old lady that works there. I guess she's a servant. She has a apron skirt full of little baby chicks, and then she takes one of the chicks and insults it a little bit, and then cuts into the servant girl, just rips her about being lazy and doing crappy, work, and why isn't she getting the milk for breakfast and all this stuff. And then the mother shows up, and she and the servant lady talk a bunch of shit about the daughter Karen, who went out the night before and was dancing, and it's implied that she may well have danced with multiple men, which is obviously dishonorable to this pious family, which their piety is pretty dubious. But in the meantime, Ingmar is basically mocking them and mocking Karen and making cracks about her. She's very resentful of her and probably jealous, definitely jealous. She's a filthy servant, a filthy, dark, swarthy servant, and Karen is the beautiful, young, nubile, blonde girl, the lovely, charming daughter who dances with all men. Okay, so the husband arrives with the servants. It's breakfast time. Everybody sits to eat. Thor asks about Karen. He gets the lowdown that she was out late and she came home late, and so she's sleeping in. He gives his wife a hard time about it, and then everybody fucks off and gets ready for church. Meantime, Ingmar, the servant lady, girl, whatever, grabs a toad off the floor, makes a bunch of weird faces, puts it in a little bucket thing, and then gets out what looks like pita bread and cuts it in half and puts the toad in the bread. I think it's like a curse she's doing, right? Like a pagan spell or something.
I guess that the toad is one of the questions I have, but yeah, it's what I figured. Is it's like I feel like the toad is supposed to be like a gift from Odin, like a curse gift or something, but it's never explicitly said.
Yeah, you have the pagans versus the Christians, basically, which is, I guess, was an ongoing thing in Scandinavia. The Vikings versus Christianity. But anyways, so that's it's a little bit weird. It's not very clear to me. Maybe if I knew more about Swedish history and mythology, that might make more sense to me, and maybe it won't. But anyways, so she makes the frog pita and packs up the food for Karen, who is going to be sent to church for Candlemas, where she will be giving food and candles. She'll be fooding and candling at the church. Oh, yay. It's very strange. Anyways, the mother goes and wakes Karen up, and Karen is super spoiled. Is just like laying in bed and telling her mother, "Bring me berries with my bread instead of butter, and bring me my satiny frock." And she's like, "Oh, I spoil you so, you rotten child." And it's very weird. She brings her really nice clothes, so she helps her dress. And Karen brags about all of the men that she danced with the night before. Tor arrives and gives her shit up for sleeping in and not being sick. And then they all, "Oh, I love you," cuddle, kiss, some creepiness. It's there's a little weirdness being implied there that the father might have more than just fatherly love for his daughter. It's very disturbing.
Impure.
Yeah, we cut to the guy that they call the professor, but as far as I know, he's just a farmhand.
Well, he's got the shavy top head, like a monk
thing.
Yeah, but she calls him a professor, and he really likes to wax poetic about shit.
Yes, he does. He is a pontificator. He's a ponce. Oh, wait a minute. That's something else.
What?
Nope. What the hell? Anyways, the professor is jabbering away with the apron lady. In the meantime, he's talking a bunch of weird professor bullshit. Tor puts Karen on her horse to send her off to church, while Gary just sneers a whole lot. And then they take off into the wilderness. As we see them arrive into this area, this clearing, and there's this creep who's like singing to them, and it's very uncomfortable. And then they pass this really beautiful shot of them passing a lake that for about 40 seconds I thought was the side of a warehouse. And suddenly it was like this optical illusion. It just went, whoop, oh, it's a lake. They pass the lake, and then they head over a very, very beautiful flowery set of hills up in the mountains, essentially. It's gorgeous.
At this point, Karen and Ingrid get into a tiff about boys, because Karen was dancing with everyone. Ingrid's totes preg balls, and maybe is... I think that farmer guy that they talk to might be the dad, and she doesn't like the attention that he gives to Karen. Anyway, so she implies that maybe... Karen throws her mouth around in places. And so then Karen slaps her and then apologizes for slapping her, and then they're just not having a nice time at all until they get to a weird bridge/house. It's basically a house built on top of a stream, and so to get across the stream without getting one's fancy dress wet, one must cross the front porch.
Yeah, of the Hridge.
Yeah.
One does this.
Yeah, the abode ridge. That's nothing. Nope. But the very sight of it sends Ingrid into hysterics. She starts saying that we need to go back, and then starts like flinging her head back and forth against the horse. I didn't like that. And so, since she's freaking out, Karen's like, well, why don't you just stay here with this old bridge house man, and I'll go on. And so that happens, and then it turns out that the old man who lives in the bridge house is a pagan witch. And he talks about how you can see and hear everything from this house, and offers to let Ingrid see. She hears, like, clopping or whatever, and she's like, what is that? And he says, it's 3 dead men riding north, and he's got a really awesome, like, dead eye.
Yeah, you know why,
and then
right?
Yeah, it's...
You know who
it's
he
like
is,
all
right?
black? No, I have no idea who he is.
He's Odin.
He's Ah!
Odin has one eye and has the raven that follows him around and all that stuff.
Damn, I did not catch that.
So he's portrayed, as I read, I think it was on Wikipedia, that he's kind of portrayed as the devil in this movie in a way. But but again, that's kind of riffing on the Christian idea that the pagan Allfather would basically be evil because he's anti-Christ. He's the non-Christ, I guess. I don't know. So
yeah,
he certainly is presented as a bad guy.
Yeah. And Ingmar loves himself some good devil guys.
He does. He does love that. And this guy is really gross.
Yeah, he's got the worst teeth. That eye is real good. I would just love to watch Odin play chess with the devil from the Seventh Seal. That would be top notch.
I watch hours of that.
Yes, they don't even have dialogue. It's just Odin laughing and the devil not laughing.
Oh man, yeah.
Fantastic. I can't believe I missed that. Wow. Okay. So then he shows her his box of cures and charms, which includes such hits as a dried bat or a severed human finger. She also doesn't figure out it's Odin, and that's why it didn't help me, because she's just like, oh, you have taken human blood. You have offered a sacrifice to Odin. And he's just like, and then she runs away into the woods. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the forest, Karen stumbles upon 3 goat herders. They tell her a sad story about how they're just some hungry orphans, and so since she's gonna be late to the church anyway, she offers them her thing of lunch with like a little keg of beer and loaves of bread, and they sit down in a nice sunny patch of the woods to eat. There's the eldest of the 3, the one with the dirty hair, makes crazy noises with his mouth because his tongue was cut out by, quote, evil men. His brother, the scrawny one, the middle of the 3, interprets for him, and the youngest one, who is just a wee lad of probably like 8 or 9 years, never says anything. She tells them a fanciful story about how she lives in a castle and how royal her mom and dad are, how her mother has so many keys that a servant walks behind her with her keys on a pillow, and how her dad like wears like a helmet of gold and all of this stuff. Then they start acting weird and talking about, my, how white your hands are, and then she starts to get nervous, realizes that this isn't a great situation, and then realizes that the goats are branded with one of her neighbor's brands, and that these men obviously stole the goats. And then at this moment, the little boy drops the loaf of bread that the toad was hiding in. The toad pops out, and the very sight of the toad is what causes the 2 oldest brothers to stop everything else and rape her.
Very graphically.
Yeah, it's hard. It's surprisingly hard. I wasn't expecting it to be as much as it was here. It's quick, but it is agony.
I mean, there's a 9-year-old kid watching, with you. It's like,
yeah,
you become the 9-year-old. Like, it's just, it's brutal.
Yeah, she tries to get away. It doesn't happen. We see that the whole time this is happening, Ingrid is off in the woods. She sees it happening, and she's holding a rock in her hands that she was gonna like come up and clobber them with, but she just never does. And as it ends, we see her drop the rock, and it falls to the ground and then rolls into the stream of water. By the way, there's streams of water everywhere. There's a stream of water running through the family's property. It just makes their land look real shit. There's a stream of water right here. And when they finished, Karen stands up and walks around crying until the mute brother clubs her over the head. She falls to the ground, blood leaking from her head, looks up at them, and then dies. They then steal all of the fine clothes that she was so excited about off of her body. They go through all of her things, they trounce the candles, and then they run off, while the youngest brother is racked with guilt. He can no longer eat food without vomiting, and he feels guilty, so he goes over to her body and starts to bury her, but just manages to get like a few handfuls of dirt onto her body before running away into the woods.
There's that bit where he like throws a handful on her face, and I mean, the girl is amazing. Like, she didn't even flinch, and she just lays there with like dirt on her face. It's like, okay, wow, that's impressive.
Good job.
Yeah, nice death play. Anyways, so back at the farm, it's now sunrise, and the goat herders show up, and they're talking to Tor outside of his fence, and they basically convince him to give them shelter because it's very cold and just very wintry and cold up on the mountain, which it isn't, but whatever. He lets them stay. He agrees to let them stay, and they're led into the kitchen. They sit waiting for him to return. He goes off to do something, and they wait for him to return. In the meantime, the professor starts talking to, oh God, who is he talking to? The little boy, right?
About the smoke?
Yeah, and they're a dead girl and all this, like.
Oh yeah, he said he saw the May Queen, but never walk into the sun, but never came back. Yeah, he's just like going on, and he says like, yes, she was like laid there dead or something like that, and they're all like, oh.
He's all, yes, there are two paths you can go by, but in the long run, you can change. I'm sorry, that's Stairway to Heaven. My bad.
Yeah.
So, it's just a spring clean for the May Queen. I'm so stupid. Tor,
It was good.
Tor returns. Mother and father and the professor all sit at the table to eat. The brothers come join them. They eat. There's a tremendous amount of slurping. It's like a Japanese noodle house in there. The little boy is extremely troubled, feeling very guilty, and it's a pretty awkward, kind of tense. I guess I would say very tense scene. Tor tells the brothers that there's work and that they can discuss, how they're to divvy out the work in the morning. But now it's time for sleepy time, and great. So they leave. The lady with the apron, the lady servant, takes the boy, tucks him into a bed with a straw mattress that looks very uncomfortable, and gives him a little talk about God and mercy, and it's just killing the kid. The other two brothers continue eating. The professor shows up once again and goes over to the boy, and this is where he tells him this chimney smoke metaphor and about crossing a bridge and terror and hands reaching up from the water grabbing as you cross the bridge, and flames and suffering, and like maybe he's talking about hell. I mean, it's hard to say. Once again, tormenting this poor child
to sleep. He actually like lullabies the kid with this horrible story.
I know, it's like, what the fuck? The parents, we see the parents, they're in bed, they're stressing, particularly the mother, because Karen has not come home. He's trying to, console her, but he's obviously worried too, and he says something like, this isn't the first time she hasn't come home, and she's just staying with whoever the fuck she's staying with. Of course she's not. Then all of a sudden we hear a scream. It sounds like the boy screaming, so the mother runs over to see what's going on. She gets to the kitchen area, and the professor tells her, quote unquote, they struck the boy. The brothers say it's an owl's cry somewhere outside. She goes to check on the boy, who I thought was dead, and reaches down and picks something from his mouth. Do you know what that was? I didn't understand that.
I think it was just blood. Like, I think she was just like I don't know. I think
maybe that's what it was.
I think she was just wiping some blood that had like dripped out of his nose because they beat the shit out of him while he was asleep. I don't know.
Yeah, like why? What the hell did he do? I don't know. Maybe he was freaking out and they tried to. Who knows? Whatever. They beat him up and he's bleeding, and she recognizes something's not right. And then the the herder, the one that talks, the talking older brother, gets his bag and pulls out Karen's dress and hands it to the mother and says that it's his sister's stuff and that she died during Candlemas. He offers it to her and says, maybe you it's torn and dirty, maybe you can get it fixed so that it's nice again. It's just like, I'm assuming he's doing that in mockery, or is he, because they know where they are.
No, so the idea is that because she told them that she lived in such a big, nice castle, that they know that they don't think this is the right place, because this is like a ramshackle mud puddle version of like a nice castle. And she was like, oh yes, this is the whole thing, and everything's so nice where I come from. And they're like, oh, well, this obviously isn't where she came from, because this place looks like shit.
I mean, it's kind of implied at the beginning that Tor is wealthy, like he's considered wealthy for the time period, but I don't think he would be considered wealthy, because even then the real higher ups were not sleeping on beds made of hay, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's a noble. I just don't think he's like,
the king or whatever.
Yeah, he might be a viscount and not a duke.
Viscount Tora. Yeah, so anyways, this guy gives her the dress, this whole thing. She's clearly horrified because she recognizes the dress and says that she'll take the clothes, all the items that the guy hands to her, and she'll bring them to Tor. And then she goes outside and has a little cry, and then right in the middle of the cry, she stops and has a ding moment, like I expected to see a light bulb over her head. And she grabs the bar and bars the door closed, which is like, why would you have a bar set up on the outside of your kitchen door? I didn't understand that, but whatever. So she bars them in, and now they're stuck in there. Turns out they're sleeping. Because at the time I'm like, did they not hear her? Well, I guess they weren't sleeping yet. I guess they just didn't hear her. So whatever.
Yeah, this movie's weird, because when we get back around to that bar, there's going to be a whole lot of stuff around, like, unbarring it quietly, and it does not matter.
No, and I watched it with my daughter, and that was intense.
Woo!
And we were talking about the symbolism there, and it's like, well, okay, this, not the symbolism of that scene, but I mean, just that the film is basically kind of presented as like a fable or an allegory. So when he comes, and also it was 1960, so when they come prancing into the room, which I'm about to talk about, they make so much noise. It's like, in today's audience wouldn't accept that. It would be like, what are you doing, dude? So anyway, so she has an idea. She has got an inspiration, and she, excuse me. Let's see, where am I? She goes and tells Tor what's going on now that she's locked these guys in there. Shows him the bloodied dress. He's obviously upset. He gets dressed and grabs a huge sword off the wall and bolts out, or hurries out sort of nonchalantly. And meanwhile, Ingmar is watching him as he's going on the stairs. She's under the stairs. He sees her, grabs her, and she immediately confesses that she was praying to Odin for what happened, that to punish the girl when she entered the woods, and describes everything, the rape, the clubbing, because she was watching, which she also tells him. And he very soberly just kind of tells her to draw him a warm bath with birch. And then he goes out and finds a birch tree and basically gets into a fight with the tree and wins and cuts off some birch branches. It's very strange.
Yeah, he does like a whole Don Quixote with a birch tree.
He does. I liked your description. What was it that you said? He defeats an entire tree.
Yeah, he just barehanded annihilates a tree with his body.
And then what follows is brilliant.
Yeah, and it's the same tree from earlier, so whenever the two girls left, that was him singing to them, and he was singing to them as he walked up to the birch tree. So then she's made him a hot bath, which is basically a barrel of hot water, and that he's standing in front of naked, and he just dips the birch branches in there like queso, and then just starts slapping his body with them, just like really getting after it, like scrubbing that space between the thigh and his testicles with them, and
it looks like he's
going to town.
Yeah, it looks like flagellation, but apparently, I watched a show the other day, some sort of show about Scandinavia or whatever, and this guy accompanies these dudes into like a sauna, and then while they're in the sauna, they beat themselves with branches. So I guess that's it's to like reinvigorate themselves, and they think that the leaves have medicinal properties or something. So that's what he's doing. But I mean, obviously, he's also flagellating.
Yeah, it's like part baptism, part self-flagellation, part, ooh, this makes my skin feel tingly.
It's so weird looking. It's just like, and now I shall dip this branch in hot water and whip the living shit out of myself with it.
Yeah, and she's just like standing there like watching him do this. Like,
she's just like, what are you gonna do? You gotta take a bath.
Men. Then he has Ingrid fetch his biggest, most pagan-y knife. Like, the knife is more handle than blade, and it has the same, like, carved motif on the handle as the chair that he's been sitting in and the chair that Odin's been sitting in. So we definitely get the idea that this house that he's in isn't like a Christian built house. Like, this was obviously the longhouse of a pagan landowner that then was, taken over by the Catholics. They're so Catholic. Oh my God. And then he takes the knife, and he and Maretta do that stupid thing where they unbar the door, like being all sneaky, like, ooh, don't make us squeaky, ooh. And then they sneak into the long hall where the three brothers are sleeping, and he rummages through their bags, which were actually Karen's bags, finds all of Karen's things in there, and then he goes up to sit at his table, and he stabs the table with his knife. None of this wakes them up.
No.
He just is like in there hanging out, him and Maretta on opposite sides of the hall, and then he's like, all right, well, they're not waking up. So then he goes and he attacks them. He defeats the mute brother in a stab battle on the throne, and so then the mute brother is like Jesus style stabbed on the throne. Meanwhile, the scrawny talky brother is like bouncing around and tries to like climb out of the ceiling through the like pole that they use to open the ceiling, and then fucking Tor pulls him down, shoves him into the fire, and holds him down to death.
It's amazing.
It's super intense for this kind of a era of movie. It's the closest to a really good like horror scene that we get in here, other than And then the little boy runs to Maretta, and she's like, no, not him. But no, Tor like grabs him and does like a world wrestling, picks the kid up over his head and just throws him across the room to death. And now his eyes have gotten black from holding the guy over the fire, and he starts getting all looking at his hands and saying, "God forgive me." And then that scene is over, and now Ingri is leading the entire household through the forest to Karen's body. On the way there, Maretta confesses it's her fault for loving Karen more than she loves God, and for being jealous that Karen loved Tor more than herself. She wanted to be Karen's favorite, but instead Tor was Karen's favorite, and we saw a little bit of that. Then they find her body. There is weeping, there is the brushing off of dirt, and then Tor prays an "I don't understand you" prayer to God, and then he explains that he doesn't know how to do anything that isn't just doing things through his own two hands. So then he realizes, aha, I found the solution. So he promises God he's going to build a church on this very spot with these two hands. And it's not going to be made out of wood or mud or shit. It's going to be made out of limestone and mortar. And then they pick up Karen's body, and I love this, by the way, a spring wells up out of the ground at the spot where her body had been laying, and then Ingri picks it up and starts washing her face from the water. The mom picks it up and starts washing Karen's face with the water, and then it's just a very, very Bergmanian tableau of people having a think about a situation. Movie over.
Yeah, that was pretty impressive. Yes.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah.
I just would like to point out that I found it hilarious that Tor decides that he is going to build a super church on the site of his daughter's rape and clubbing death.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, maybe that's not a great site. I'm just saying. But
yeah.
he wants absolution. He wants he wants to be forgiven.
Yeah. I mean, it's that's what I like about it, is it's very obviously not for God, it's for him.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
It's like the ultimate fuck you to the goat herders. I'm gonna build a church right where you murdered my daughter.
Yeah. Yeah, way more of a fuck you than killing them to death.
Yeah. Oh my god. Whee!
Yeah. What a film.
Wow, it was great. I loved it.
Yeah. I mean, it was agonizing at points, but it was superb all the way through. We talk about movies that don't hold your hand. This is a movie that not only does it not hold your hand, but it's not even pointing what direction you should go. There is stuff in here where I'm like, what the fuck is that? What is going on? Like the toad, you can pick it up, but I only was able to pick it up the third time I watched it. I was like, all right, now this time I'm gonna figure out what that toad is.
Yeah, I kept rewinding the toad scene because I was trying to figure out what was going on. First of all, that when she first picked it up, I thought it was a bird, and then a toad starts climbing, and I'm like, wait, she turned a bird into a toad? And my dad was like, no, I think she picked up a toad to begin with. So we kept going back, and then we're like, what is going on? Why is she making a toad pita?
Toad pockets.
Toad pockets. And why does the knife make a grinding noise when she sticks it in the bread? I'm like, what the hell kind of bread is that?
That's some rough ass bread.
Jesus Christ! It's like the sound effects in this movie are terrible.
Oh yeah.
The water sound is, I mean, I understand that water is obviously important in the movie. It's called the Virgin Spring, for fuck's sake. But there's a scene where I think it's one of the scenes when Ingari is running across the little babbling brook or whatever, and it sounds like somebody is slapping a bathtub with just just this shitty paper thin sound effect that's right up in your face. It's like, she's 40 feet away. Why does it sound like she's my head is right next to her feet? It's and then there's when the girls are riding their horses, and they're going through the meadow, and like you hear one like coconut clop sound.
Yeah.
They're just like walking along, all of a sudden you hear, and I'm like, oh no, we're not gonna do this. Yeah, the sound effects are terrible in this movie. I have to say.
Yeah. If you're paying attention, like, yeah, this is not one for the headphones. This is definitely one to just watch on the TV.
Yeah, exactly. It's you don't need to see it with the headphones. I mean, the version that I saw was pristine. It looks beautiful, but
the version spring.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Whoa.
But yeah. Well, like rating wise, what saith the mayhaps? I don't know.
Don't take this the wrong way.
Right.
I gave it a 3.3 out of 5 Loathsome Things. Loathsome Things, not as a movie.
Right.
As a movie, this is close to, if not a total 5.
Exactly.
As a Loathsome Thing, it's not there. It's not a horror movie, and one of my categories is it a horror movie? While I appreciated the masterful cinema of it, the enjoyability factor, which there's a whole one of the 5 categories is, did I enjoy it? Woo, that's not there. Like, I appreciated it, but I did not enjoy it. So it lost some points. It had full marks for like exquisite movie making, full marks for its historical and artistic place in the horror genre, but it's just it's just not Loathsome Thingsy enough. So
that's true.
3.3 out of 5 for me. What about you, John?
I did the exact same thing. I gave it for Loathsome Things. I gave it my regular Loathsome Things, same thing. I rated it based on those criteria. Real world, as far as real world movie, I think it's such a great film. It's such an important film that I'm just going to go ahead and give it a 5. In the world of film, in my experience as a film fan, it's a 5 for me.
Yeah.
For a Loathsome Things, I rated it higher than you. I gave it a 4.14, but what I did is I gave it like right down the line for, is it horror or scary? Just because I didn't want to like count it too low and have it be too low in the ratings because it's not a horror film. It's not, but I didn't want to count it against it. So I gave it an average. Same thing with effects. There are no effects, so I didn't, I guess the fire thing, that was kind of cool.
And the spring,
yes.
Yeah, like that was, they did such a good job on just like having that water well up, because even there's like a moment where you're like, wait, what's happening right there? And then you're like, oh, it's water. Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, exactly. That scene surprised me. I was not expecting it, and it was such a great idea that it was just like, oh, kudos to whatever the hell you're doing. This is great. And then it was so funny. We were watching the movie, and as soon as they were done, it's like, all right, I'm going to go have a smoke. I'll be right back. And I open the door, and I go outside, and I'm like, oh! And I stick my head back in the door and go, Virgin Spring.
Good one, Dad!
I know. It's just like, oh, my God. I'm an idiot. I gave, I looked at a couple of the criteria maybe a little bit differently, but I gave it full marks for atmosphere, setting, writing, acting. I did enjoy the film. Of course, I don't enjoy, the thematic elements, but I also recognize that it's a film, and it helps for me to separate it and tell myself that it's an allegory.
That does
because
help.
as a straight narrative, it's a very, very bleak film. And that's a film that would, if it was made today, as a brand new film, it wasn't, a remake of any kind, it would be extremely dark, or I could see it being done extremely dark. So dark that it would be too much, I think. For me, whereas I think, it wouldn't be winning, Palme d'Or or any of that shit. I'll put it that way. But anyways, so I gave it a 4.14.
Nice. That is a 7.44 out of 10 Loathsome Things. That feels about right. Like we said, it's much better of a straight up cinema
Mm-hmm.
than a Loathsome Thing. Like this is top of the class filmmaking.
Yeah.
So if what you want is to appreciate a fine piece of filmmaking with some really troubling artistic representations of rape in cinema, this is probably your go-to.
Yeah, I mean, this is it's very much cinema as opposed to a movie,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of horror fans that don't like stuff like this. It just doesn't appeal to them. They want the schlocky stuff and the gore and there's of course like any other subgenre, there's all these little micro genres in there, and there's people that only like those specific things. So obviously this movie's not going to work for all kinds of different people, and it's also very slow paced. I mean, it was made in
Oh yeah.
and in the early 60s. It's just the aesthetics are just so different. But as far as like being a film fan and all that kind of stuff, obviously its place in cinema is is inarguable, but it's also it's just a fine film. I mean, it's very, very well made, and if you look close enough, you see so much. It's kind of like Citizen Kane. Like, you watch Citizen Kane and you're just like, wow, this movie basically spawned the entire modern era of cinema. I mean, it literally did. People would say that, and I thought it was just, rhetoric, because they had such admiration for the film. But then you watch it and you're like, oh, no, this movie directly influenced, like, that kind of shot. That's the first time I've ever seen a shot like that, and you see it in Hollywood all the time. Certain camera angles, certain lighting, it just, you never saw it before. I never saw it before, except maybe the Expressionists, like Cabinet of Dr. Caligari and stuff, where they're real, but that's experimental, I mean, but movies like this are just straight up art. Like, these guys are visionaries, really. I mean, they're unafraid to make the exact movie they want to make, and they really don't give a shit what anyone else thinks, which is great.
Yeah.
I love it.
I need to go back and watch Citizen Kane again. The last time I watched it, I was very young. I was stupid youth young and drunk and bored out of my mind, and I didn't even finish watching it. So I need to go back now that I've actually like watched movies for real and give it a go. Also, Cabinet of Dr. Caligari also bored me out of my mind.
Really? Wow.
Around the same time, yeah.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I intentionally avoided. As I was growing up and I had heard about things that were supposedly great, I would usually try to avoid those things, because my experience was always, I hate this shit. Why do people like this? And like, why? Like, I would read, like, say, Bruce Springsteen. I'd read about how great his live performances were, and how he, was the greatest rock and roll band. And then I'd listen to one of his records and just be like, what? Like, what? What are you talking about? It's like middle of the road dad rock,
Yeah.
So what do you, yeah. Like, so what if he plays 4 hours, But then, over time, I actually put more effort into his stuff. I saw one of his concerts on TV, and I suddenly, it just clicked, and I was like, oh, this stuff is really, really good. I totally understand what they're saying. And so there were certain things that I put off for a long time, like Citizen Kane. It was like, I'm not going to watch this movie until I'm ready, because I know I'm going to fucking hate it. I knew I would. And I went through this phase in the 90s where I was like renting videos constantly. I lived right around the corner from a video store. So every day, and I lived alone. So every day I would just rent like 2 or 3 movies and go watch. And I watched anything I could think of that I had been afraid of before. So Citizen Kane was one of those. I mean, that movie completely blew me away at that point. And I'm like, oh, I'm so glad I waited, because now this is amazing. And I don't know if it's because I'm a moron and I'm a little slow, or I'm stubborn, or what it is, but there's things now that I come into that I've known about my whole life that I always thought was shit, and now it hits me totally different. Like, it's like I wasn't ready for it, now I'm ready for it, kind of thing. So,
yeah.
Anyways.
God, I hope I never get to that point with the movie Inception, because that movie can, like, eat all of the asses.
I fucking hate that movie. I hate that movie so much. And you know, we're in the middle of watching Oppenheimer, which is available on Peacock for free or whatever. And I mean, I think we got halfway through, and I was just like, I don't want to watch this anymore. Like, I'm gonna finish it, but I needed a break because it kind of just sucked. I don't know.
Yeah, every time I look at it, I just, like, see his face, and I see all of the marketing around it, and then they're like, and it's 3 hours long, and I'm like, oh, I do not care. I don't care.
The first 90 minutes are very much 90 minutes. Like, you feel every fucking minute. And it's just like boom, 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 like fast talk, quick scenes, lots of editing, you know, not like action, but a lot going on. And it's too much. And Cillian Murphy is a really good actor, but he's also extremely, like, weird to me. He's real stiff and awkward. And Oppenheimer was not considered like an awesome dude. Like, he was kind of considered a dick.
Yeah.
And he plays him like a dick. And it's like a 3-hour movie about a dick who coordinated, the creation of a weapon that could annihilate humanity, make the world unlivable. And it's like so celebratory, and look how smart all these people are. And it's just like the ultimate expression of white European male hubris. It's like, I fucking hate all of these people.
Yeah.
Like Werner Heisenberg, douchebag. Gödel, absolute tool. Einstein, dickhead. I mean, it was amazing.
Now you're kind of making it sound good.
Everybody was an asshole.
If it was like a James Franco and Seth Rogen movie, like, that would be great.
There was stuff in there because I read Richard Rose's The Making of the Atomic Bomb, which is fucking incredible. Richard Rhodes. That's one of the best books I've ever read, nonfiction. But it goes into, you know, everything that you would want to know. I know this is based on a book as well, and I'm sure the book is good because it's talking about the real people instead of these actors' portrayals. And, you know, I mean, it's incredibly well made, but I fucking hated it. I don't know. It made me resent, you know, white people even more than I already do.
Yeah.
I don't need to. I'm already there.
Yeah. We're already there. I just so random connection there. I just watched a show called Rhys Darby in Japan. It's just Rhys Darby, the actor, and it's all comedic. But then randomly he goes to the dome of Hiroshima, like the place that was directly underneath the explosion.
Yeah, ground
and a
zero.
lady there. A lady was talking about how, you know, it was detonated so high up in the air, and that people on the ground level started to get hot, and so and then the heat just kept building and building, and so they went into the river, and that's why whenever they went back to recover people, there were just all of the bodies were in the river, and I was just like, oh my god, I'm dead. This is just horrific.
Boiled alive.
Oh my god. Yeah. So
it's
there's
beyond
that.
horrific. Yeah, there's some books that cover, you know, based on eyewitness accounts and stuff, what happened minute by minute, and it's just like, I mean, like the whole I am become, you know, what is it, the goddess of death, or I am become death. It's like, dude, you guys suck so hard, you know. And like, you got to give credit to Einstein, because he was just like, why are you guys doing this? I mean, what is the purpose? You know, and they're like, well, because of the science. And I mean, I know he was not, you know, he did not believe in quantum physics. He took that to his grave, and he was wrong about it. But at the same time, he was dead right about the bomb. It should have never been made.
Yeah.
But, you know, people just can't resist, man. It's like the resources that went into that, and like, just the story of how they acquired that much uranium is insane.
Yeah.
I mean, But anyways, yeah.
Or how about the fact that it didn't need to happen? Like
At all.
the Japanese military had already offered surrender. it was already there, and it was bullshit. We committed some of the most heinous war crimes for bullshit. I'm so angry. I'm sorry.
We did it twice. That's what kills me. We
Twice!
dropped the one on Hiroshima, and we were like, yeah, that's pretty intense. But this one's a lot more powerful. Let's take it to their industrial center, Nagasaki, and blow the living fucking daylights out of that one with a bomb that was megatons bigger than the first one. Or so.
Oh my god.
It was horrible. So we have that to look forward to in the movie.
Oh my god. Yeah.
Like, I don't hate these people enough. I know what's coming because I've already read about it, like, in great detail. I'm just like, yeah, I don't like these people at all.
Yeah, I will say this for what's his name, Christopher Nolan. He knows how to make you not want to watch a movie even though you know what's happening. I tried to rewatch Memento and I was like, oh, fuck all of this. This is terrible.
I hate Memento.
It's so bad. It was okay the first time if you didn't know what was going on, but like trying to rewatch it, it's like, no, you can go fuck yourself. This is dumb.
I mean, there's just too much Joey Pants going on in that movie. But you know what's weird is, for whatever reason, because I know it's a piece of shit, I love Interstellar. I have no idea why.
What?
I have no idea why, because everything else of his, I mean, I guess I'm okay with the Batman movies.
Yeah.
But whatever. And what was it, 17? Is that 1917 or whatever, the World War I movie he made? Was that him that made that? It was, wasn't it?
Oh, I don't know. Is that the one where it's like one long shot of those dudes running the thing?
Yeah, that was a good movie. That was really good. But like Tenet looks so bad I won't even watch it.
I haven't watched it either. They like tried to sell it so hard. They're like, look, it's a Christopher Nolan movie and you're locked inside your house. Watch it. We haven't told you anything else about it. And it looks dumb.
Did he make the like Hollywood version of oh god, what was it, with Pacino and Robin Williams, and they're up in like Alaska and it's like, you know, 24 hours of sunlight, and one is a killer and one is a detective hunting him down?
Yeah, it's Insomnia.
Oh, Insomnia, yeah, which is a remake of a kick-ass Swedish film.
Nice.
And I watched the remake, and I'm pretty sure that's Nolan, and I'm just like, I fucking hate this movie. It's terrible.
Yeah. He's also directing Beetlejuice 2.
No.
Just kidding.
Okay. Oh my god. That's like, oh my god, is he pulling a David Gordon Green?
Wouldn't that be awesome? If he's just doing the worst movies from now on.
He's just a franchise killer, just like David Gordon Green.
Yeah.
It's like, well, let's see. I had to take it took me 3 movies to ruin Halloween, but I think I can do The Exorcist in 1.
Yeah.
Check it out. Everybody's freaked out about Reagan, right? What if there's 2 of them? Like,
oh, yeah.
Fuck you. Oh, and make it interracial, because that's even better.
Neat.
Oh my god. Neath.
Exquisite callback, sir.
Wow.
Speaking of calling back, do you want to call back to any movies that the audience hasn't heard you talk about that you watched recently, or non-movie other things?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen any horror films. It's been a little slim pickings for me as far as, I don't know what, you go through lulls, I think, and I'm just going through a lull with horror film. And there is no lull for me with the audiobooks, just because as long as I have a job, I'm at that place, I'm going to be listening to audiobooks. So right now I'm chewing through Alan Moore's Jerusalem. I think I mentioned last time, 61 hours long. I have 15 hours to go. And I just got through the chapter, which is about an hour and a half of James Joyce style one sentence with puns and innuendo, and it was just like, man, this book is incredibly well written, and it's just too long. There's too much packed into it, even though it's incredibly well written. It's just too much. I mean, 61 hours it's an audiobook, but 61 hours is just obscene. It's just, there's no reason for it. It does not need to be that long. God bless him for taking 10 years to write it, but he didn't have to put it out. It would have been a great, maybe, 300-page novel where he really got to the point and had maybe a couple pages of these crazy flighty ideas that he has. But 61 hours just beats you to death. So anyways,
Jesus.
Yeah, I've been listening to that. I finished, there was something else that I finished. What about you? What have you been watching?
I watched a weird 1970s movie called The Premonition, and it's basically like a supernatural retelling of The Man Who Knew Too Much, but with like psychic visions and a woman and a couple's adopted daughter is taken by a supernaturalist and her completely demented boyfriend, and then the boyfriend kills the supernaturalist, and so the ghost of the supernaturalist gives psychic dreams to the mother to show her how to get her daughter back. But it was good. It's worth watching, and it's on like free streaming services. And I also, at your behest, watched Dark Harvest, and that movie kicks so much fucking ass.
That's the one. Yeah, I knew there was one. Yeah. Dark Harvest was great, and man, I went and read stuff online, and man, I mean, there's people who really enjoyed it, but most people didn't like it, which I didn't understand.
I mean, I could see
it's a
that.
horror film.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't trust the movie. I feel like if I watched it like for real and analyzed it, I would probably be like, "Oh, this guy's a Trump supporter." but I mean,
it's paper thin for sure.
Oh yeah.
But honestly, I like the movie more than the fucking book it's based on.
Nice.
I couldn't get into the book really. I finished it and I was just like, yeah, Children of the Corn, but with Pumpkinhead in it. Okay, great.
Yeah, it's way better than Children of the Corn.
Yeah, and then I watched the movie, and it's like, a bunch of greasers in some weird town that's like stuck in its own reality, and this horrible recurring cycle of evil, and the way that it's explained and stuff. And I was like, this is great, and it's violent as shit. It was fantastic.
It's amazing, and like, I was real skeptical all up into the minute that they, at the very beginning, when they kill the Pumpkinhead guy and then rip its body open and start eating candy bars that are hidden inside of it. And I was like, oh yeah, we're here. Let's go for the rest of it. Because it just gets better.
People, like, of course, on Reddit, but people on Reddit were upset about, the plot holes and the how illogical it was. And I'm just like, are you fucking shitting me right now? Like, illogical? Like, what do you think, Nightmare on Elm Street is logical? Like, it's a fucking horror movie. What do you expect? Like, somebody was upset because there's a scene where all these kids are hiding in a bomb shelter, and he rips the door off, and you see him slowly go down into the bomb shelter, and you hear a bunch of screaming, and then this explosion of blood just bursts out of the bomb shelter. It was great. And some guy's like, that was so unrealistic. And I'm like, which part?
I love that Reddit is just the place that all white guys go to express their worst ideas.
They get upset about the dumbest shit. It's amazing. They were mad because these kids are locked in their bedrooms for 2 days, and then they come out and they're so ravenous that they're killing things, and I was like, dude, calm down. It's a fucking movie. Like, you're taking it way too seriously. It's a movie. I thought it was a lot of fun. I don't know.
Yeah, I loved it. Like like there were little moments where I would get like I don't think I like that. But then I was like, oh no, actually that's pretty fucking tight. Like whenever his pumpkin-y head gets all glowy, I was like, man, I'm angry that it's a pumpkin. And then I was like, actually that looks really fucking cool. I like that
scene.
now.
Yeah, that scene was really cool. It had some. I mean, it's a very stylized film. So it's got a lot of visual style. As I said, it's pretty thin, and it does have a lot of plot holes. So I guess you don't want to analyze it too closely, but it's not that kind of film either. And a lot of people had a hard time with that sheriff guy, which to be fair, that guy's really annoying. But he was also kind of a cartoon character. He was playing it that way on purpose. It's not like he was trying to be a real person. There's a lot of humor in the movie, I think, that people maybe overlook. But I don't know. I thought that movie was kick-ass. I was really glad to see it.
Yeah, it reminds me, like, it's in a class of movies with, like, Teeth and Edward Scissorhands, where it's all the way over into this other space of unrealness that you don't have to take everything at 1-to-1.
There's a fantasy element there for sure.
Yeah, because like it's they're like it's obviously the modern day, but they're like stuck in the 1950s, and we don't get a expression of why that is or what that is, and it doesn't matter. But I would say if we reviewed it, we would probably come away and be like, all right, here's a list of problems, but I don't think we need to.
We'd probably rip it apart, but we don't need to.
There's no call for it. Speaking of no call for it and ripping things apart, you can join us in 2 weeks as we finally dive into Wes Craven's Last House on the Left, 1972. It's gonna be a lot of fun, you guys.
Yeah, a movie I've avoided my whole life because I didn't want to see a girl get violently raped. And now we're gonna do it 3 times in a month.
Yeah. Are you gonna watch this one with your daughter?
No. No, she's pretty savvy when it comes to movies, but no.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess so. As always, I'm sorry that you have to not go to Uppsala.